I was a mistake, an unintended mishap, an experimental success with unforeseen consequences that would eventually prevail. My master grew precociously optimistic of my creation, expectant of fame and revolution in the sciences that not many could begin to fathom. I recall his notes. No one could conceive the variety of feelings which bore him onwards like a hurricane in the first enthusiasm of success. A new species would bless him as its creator and source. Many happy and excellent natures would owe their being to him. He pursued his undertaking with unremitting ardor, and with rigor did he succeed, only to subsequently fail. His discovery of the unnatural, of sciences unknown at the time, caused him almost everything he loved and owed. It marked him a revolutionary pariah among a sea of hesitant chemists, so rather than face the ignominy of creating a demon, that is, me, he chose rather to ignore my existence. From the guilt and pursuit of his scientific interests, nonetheless, it was too late for Frankenstein to conform to society. He was now cursed for the eternity of his life with my baneful, shameful existence.
I recall sipping on my morning tea that fine day. It is not with ease that one may forget the unordinary panic that took control of Mr. Baggins as he fled from his home. We hobbits are plain quiet folk and have no use for adventures. Yet the opposite seemed to be true for Mr. Baggins that day and thereafter. He never seemed to recover from the illness that took control of him. He had left with the odd dwarves who had visited the night prior, and a year after had not been heard of. We hobbits have heard of his many demented narratives during that year span, and agree that he is nonetheless not one of us anymore. He is not a true hobbit, not a peaceful, pacifistic villager who resides in his home with a splendid cup of tea and his black bread. He cannot fathom remaining in Hobbitown without the horrible knowledges of the Far East. I believe Baggins desired knowledge that we cannot provide, and set out to pursue these myths and secrets. He cannot appreciate the life that we hold here, devoid of the heinous secrets of the East. He has told us how he wished again and again for his nice hobbit home, and not for the last time. Yet he has at last returned and remains unchanged, and this unaltered behavior from his voyage has caused his subtle rejection of the community. He snuck in caverns, rode on horses, lived with unknown creatures, and stole from dragons and village people. Why, he has even participated in a war of many sides. No, he is not who he once was, and hence cannot truly be a hobbit.
Yet, like my master, my creator, my destroyer cannot rejoin his loved ones in peace, I myself cannot be accepted by the cruel humans who roam this planet. My mere appearance causes horror and terror, as the innocent fear my brutality and unnaturalness. No, they are not innocent, these creatures. They are guilty for their rejection of those who do not belong by merely appearing different. When I escaped the lab of my birth, I sprinted for what seemed like incessant hours into the depths of the adjacent woods. The cold felt unfamiliar against my skin, but my desire to flee the world seemed to take priority. I recall the following few weeks attempting to join villagers and townspeople. One individual turned on hearing a noise, and perceiving me, shrieked loudly, and quitting the hut, ran across the field with the speed of which his debilitated form hardly appeared capable. Another instance, I had spotted a village with many cordial-seeming individuals. I had hardly placed my foot within the door before the children shrieked, and one of the women fainted. The whole village was roused. Some fled, some attacked me, until I escaped to the open country. My identity could not be accepted by society. If I were to fit into their discriminating views, I would need to alter my identity entirely.
I have come to realize the importance of identity in this unchanging lifestyle. Quite frankly, it seems that identity and status solely determine an individual's position in such a Victorian society. Please excuse my secretive nature. But I recall Sir Algernon Moncrief's very words.
One has a right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses to, dear Jack. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Whether one uses the term Bunburying or not, these men adopt identities to suit the occasion while the ladies imagine identities to suit the persons with whom they choose to associate. Gwendolyn explains her principles in love.
We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached provincial pulpits, as I'm told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name Ernest. I find there's something about this name that inspires absolute confidence.
Merely regarding the name, identity determines the complexities of life, and these individuals have somehow manipulated their own to fit with the needs of society.
A hobbit is a hobbit. We live in Hobbitown and drink our divine tea. We essentially mind our own business and keep ourselves rather distant from the turmoil of other races and kinds. The goblins swore revenge against the dwarves because the dwarves have killed the great goblin. The elves and the dwarves have a long-standing mutual hatred because of some disagreement about payment for treasure many generations ago. We have no participation in such quarrels, much truly know of such conflicts. Yet Mr. Bilbo Baggins seemed to have intervened in such affairs. He voyaged with the dwarves to the depths of mountains and to the edges of this world, causing turmoil at every step. He's developed bad relations and has undermined the neutral reputations of the hobbits. Yes, this is a world where family heritage and race identity are at priority, and Mr. Baggins has somehow threatened the system.
I feel somewhat bewildered by what you've just told me. To be born in a handbag seems to me display an utter contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would allow our only daughter to form an alliance with a parcel.
Fine Lady Bracknell emphasizes the role social status plays in this household. If one were to have any hints of non-noble origins, immediately would he be admonished. Yes.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000, and in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her.
Human identity and status, once again, is everything. Yet, neither being earnest nor being earnest is of much help when confidence is lost in the sustainability of human identity. Because the characters live in a world in which order is constantly vanishing, they scorn theory, consistency, and the appearance of simplicity.
Rejection by others has been my forte. Those who do not meet society's requirements are simply seen as outcasts. Once again, I stayed in hiding outside a cottage, only this time for months. A lovely family resided inside the home, yet my appearance yielded identical results as many times before. At the instant the cottage door was opened, Felix, Safie, and Agatha entered. Who can describe their horror on beholding me? Agatha fainted, Safie rushed out of the cottage, and Felix darted forward and struck me violently with a stick as my heart sank within me. I will always be the outcast.
He had returned merely days ago, Mr. Baggins, and as if nothing of this childish adventures had occurred. It was nearly lunchtime, and most of his things had already been sold. The return of Mr. Bilbo Baggins created quite a disturbance, both under the hill and over the hill, and across the water. We were not on friendly terms with Bilbo ever after. He had lost his reputation.
The truth, as Sir Algernon says, is rarely pure and never simple. Truth itself dwindles into insignificance for the sake of satisfying society. Individuals have a strictly practical altitude to the relationship between statements and actuality, the latter being so elusive. Charged with being named John, embarrassed when required to utter things in strict correspondence with what seemed to be facts, John declared,
I can deny it if I like. I can deny anything if I like.
It is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I have been reduced to such a painful position, and I really am quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. So, excuse me if I stutter my tale.
Jack and Albie certainly attain their ends through lying. They are true rogues, impulsive, lovers of deception and imposture. They fulfill themselves in the way of all rogues by discovering human freedom and a protean identity. It is actually quite paradoxical to address them by the names of earnest, for in this society, is it truly important to be earnest?